আসসালামু আলাইকুম, সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি উইমেন টুডে অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে যে বিষয়টি নিয়ে কথা বলবো সেটি হচ্ছে ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স। ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স ব্যাপারটা কি সেটা আমরা সরাসরি প্রোগ্রামে যেয়ে সেটা সম্পর্কে জানার চেষ্টা করব। প্রথমে যে জিনিসটা বলতে চাই যে এটা এমন একটা জিনিসটার উপকারিতা সম্পর্কে ছোট্ট একটু বলেই তারপরে আমরা এটা সম্পর্কে আরেকটু বিশদভাবে জানার চেষ্টা করব। এটার উপকারিতা এমনটা যেটা যেই দক্ষতা আমাদের মধ্যে থাকলে আমরা আমাদের পারিবারিক বা নিজের আত্ম উন্নয়নে আমরা যেরকম ভালো একটা রেজাল্ট পাবো, সেটা আবার কর্মক্ষেত্রে গেলেও সেটা আমাদের একটা বিরাট একটা সমৃদ্ধি আনতে পারে। তো এখান থেকে আমি বলতে চাই যে এটা আমাদের নিজেদের ব্যক্তিগত জীবনে, সামাজিক জীবনে, আমাদের কাজের ক্ষেত্রে সব দিক থেকে আমরা এটা সুফল পেতে পারি। এই সুফলটা কিভাবে পাবো, এটা আমাদের মধ্যে আমরা কিভাবে আনবো এবং আমাদের পরবর্তী প্রজন্মের মধ্যে কিভাবে এটা ঢুকিয়ে দিতে পারি সেই বিষয়টা নিয়ে আলোচনা করব। তো বেশি আর কথা বাড়াচ্ছি না, আমরা আসল কথাতেই চলে যাচ্ছি। আজকে আমাদের সাথে যারা আছেন, আমাদের সাথে আছেন একজন না, দুজন না, তিনজন আমাদের সাথে প্যারেন্টিং কনসালটেন্ট আছেন যারা এই বিষয়টা নিয়ে বিশদভাবে আলোচনা করবেন। আছেন আমাদের সাথে ডক্টর মাহেরা রুবি, একাডেমিক অ্যান্ড প্যারেন্টিং অ্যান্ড ফ্যামিলি কোচ, আছেন নূর চৌধুরী, প্যারেন্টিং কনসালটেন্ট, এবং ডক্টর আব্দুল বারি, educationalist, parenting consultant and author. Assalamu alaikum, all three of you. Thank you so much for your time. বারি ভাই আর রুবি আপা আমাদের সাথে অনলাইনে যোগ দিচ্ছেন এবং নূর চৌধুরী ভাই আমাদের সাথে সেটে আছেন। তো অবশ্যই আমাদের সাথে এই তিনজন বাঘা কনসালটেন্ট যারা আছেন অবশ্যই আমাদেরকে অনেক কিছু বলবেন যেটা আমরা আমাদের ব্যক্তিগতভাবেই আমরা কাজে লাগাতে পারবো, আমাদের বাচ্চাদের ক্ষেত্রেও আমাদের এটা কাজে লাগবে। আসলে ব্যাপারটা কি, অনেক সময় যে আমরা চাই যে আমাদের বাচ্চার মধ্যে কিছু জিনিসগুলো ইনস্টিল করবার জন্য, কিন্তু তার আগে যেটা দরকার সেটা আমাদের মধ্যে অ্যাজ এ প্যারেন্ট আমাদের মধ্যেই ব্যাপারগুলো আছে কি না সেগুলো আগে দেখতে হবে। সো অ্যাট এনি টাইম আমাদের ফোন লাইন খোলা আছে, আপনারা অবশ্যই আমাদের সাথে ফোনে কোনো অ্যাডভাইস চাইলে জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন বা আপনাদের কোনো এক্সপিরিয়েন্স থাকলে অবশ্যই জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন। নূর ভাই, I will come to you first. Emotional intelligence, big word. What does it mean to you?
Okay. So emotional intelligence is also often known as EQ, and we know about IQ, which is the intelligence, and then you've got the emotional intelligence, which is also known as EQ or EI. In a nutshell, you could say it's being smart about your emotions, how you feel, how others feel, and how emotions have an impact on people and everything around us. So that is what I would say, as a nutshell, is emotional intelligence.
Okay, I love that, smart about your emotions. Ruby appa, আপনিও কি এটার সাথে একমত? What do you think?
Definitely একমত। এটা আসলে আমাদের আবেগগুলো আমরা কিভাবে বুঝি, কিভাবে প্রসেস করি এবং কিভাবে এগুলো ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করি, that's also part of emotional intelligence, I think.
Okay. Abdul Bahari bhai, আপনার কাছ থেকে আমি জানতে চাই, what are your experience, or would you be able to give us a couple of examples? What does emotional intelligence look to you?
Me, na?
জি।
Okay, thank you. না, এটা আসলে ইন্টেলিজেন্ট কোয়েশ্চেন্টের মতো ইমোশনাল কোয়েশ্চেন্ট বলে অনেক সময় এটাকে। এটা নিজেকে জানা, বোঝা, তারপরে কিভাবে আমাদের আবেগকে ইউজ করা যাবে, ম্যানেজ করা যাবে, তারপরে এটা পজিটিভলি কিভাবে আমাদের পার্সোনাল লাইফ, সোশ্যাল কমিউনিটি লাইফে চিলড্রেনদের সাথে অ্যাপ্লাই করা যাবে। এটা প্রত্যেকের একটা জরুরি, বাবা মার যেমন জরুরি, ছেলে মেয়েদের শেখানো বা ছেলে মেয়েরা অটোমেটিক শিখবে সেটাও জরুরি। এখানে ছেলে মেয়েদের যে সমস্যা হতে পারে সেটা হলো যে অনেকে যে সমস্ত ছেলে মেয়েরা কমিউনিকেশন কম করে বিভিন্ন কারণে, অথবা বাবা মা কম কথা বলে, ছেলে মেয়েরা কম কথা বলে, তারা কিন্তু অনেক সময় নিজেদেরকে সঠিকভাবে এক্সপ্রেস করতে পারে না। এবং এটা বাবা মা হিসাবে মূল দায়িত্ব হলো একটা ছেলে বা মেয়ের তার শারীরিক, মানসিক, ইমোশনাল প্লাস হ্যাপিনেস বা স্পিরিচুয়াল সাইড সব দিকে লক্ষ্য রাখা আর কি। এটা যদি ছোট্টবেলা থেকে লক্ষ্য না রাখা হয়, যদি তাদেরকে ওইভাবে তৈরি করা না যায়, তাহলে কিন্তু তাদের অ্যাডোলেসেন্স বা পরবর্তী সময় সমস্যা হতে পারে।
আচ্ছা, তো ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স ব্যাপারটা হচ্ছে কি যে আমাদের যে আবেগ যেগুলো আছে, ইমোশনস, হাউ ডু উই ডিল উইথ দিস অ্যান্ড হাউ উই আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড আদার পিপলস ইমোশনস অ্যান্ড টু হ্যাভ a productive life, how we can move forward having the intelligence but at the same time understanding the emotions. আমি যতটুকু বুঝলাম আমি ছাড়াভাবে কথা বলছি যে we are trying to put everything together. Noor bhai, before during before we started, you're talking about the components. What are those? We're going to come to that, but before this, we are talking about this subject. Why are we? What's the importance of this? What's the significance of this topic? Why do we want to know about this?
The significance of it is that really emotional intelligence impacts our whole life in how we deal with ourselves and how we deal with others. And if you look at success criteria, people who are successful in life are the ones who have good emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And there's actually psychologists have looked at it and they said that a person's success, only 10% is really down to their IQ. The rest of it is to do with other factors, including emotional intelligence. And there was a study that was done by Harvard University which went further and said that there was almost zero impact of IQ on career success.
Right.
And very much emotional intelligence was a bigger driving force in people being successful because they know in how to basically work with other people, the social skills you learn with that, and these are the cues you usually need in life to kind of get through.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Like people skills, how do we manage people? And I think I was reading in World Economic Forum where they were talking about this is one of the, well, 2020 is here, but then in the workplace, this is one of the skills they were looking forward to have, and in future as well. One of them is the emotional intelligence. So we understand that in workplace, this is something the employers would love to have. Kintu private life e Ruby apna kache jante chacchi je private life e as in like amader family life e emotional intelligence eta kibhabe amra kaj korte pari ba how do we see importance of emotional intelligence in our family life? Ruby appa আপনি লাইনে আছেন? Ruby appa,
unmute করতে হবে.
Okay.
Ruby.
Sorry, I was muting myself, so everyone.
Oh, that's the joy of online thing. No worries.
That's okay. Sorry. So আসলে আমাদের পরিবারগুলোতে, আমাদের ফ্যামিলিগুলোতে যে সমস্যাগুলো দেখা যাচ্ছে এখন, মানে অনেক তো স্টাডি আছে, অনেক রিসার্চ আছে ছোটবেলা থেকে, যে আমরা যখন দেখি একটা মায়ের প্রথম যখন একটা বাচ্চা হয় তখন অনেক পরামর্শ দেবে in how to manage the emotions of that child. তো অনেকে বলবে যে হ্যাঁ ওকে নিজে ঘুম পাড়াতে হলে অনেক কান্না শুনতে হবে, so let them cry themselves to sleep. অনেকে বলবে যে না সাথেই উঠে নেওয়া উচিত, সান্ত্বনা দেওয়া উচিত, বাচ্চাকে বুকে নিয়ে নেওয়া উচিত। অনেকে বলবে যে আলাদা রুমে ঘুম পাড়াও, অনেকে বলবে যে সাথে একই বিছনায় ঘুম পাড়ানো ভালো। So there's so many conflicting advice and research, but actually more and more what we are understanding is that যে বাচ্চারা আসলে ওদেরকে সান্ত্বনা দেওয়া হয়, হ্যাঁ, যাদের আবেগ কান্না বা খুশি বা এগুলো শুধু not just the painful feelings, but even খুশির যে জিনিসগুলো, যেমন একটা বাচ্চা খুব উৎসাহ নিয়ে বাসায় আসলো স্কুল থেকে, একটা সুন্দর কাজ নিয়ে আসলো, রিপোর্ট নিয়ে আসলো, যদি মা বাবা বেশি পাত্তা না দেয় তার কিন্তু এই যে আবেগটা সে ফিল করলে এত এক্সাইটমেন্ট, আম্মুকে দেখাবো, আব্বুকে দেখাবো, ভাই বোনদেরকে দেখাবো, এটা নিয়ে অনেক সেলিব্রেশন হবে। এই আবেগগুলো যখন আসলে ফিলিংগুলো রেসপন্স না পায় ওরা পজিটিভ, হ্যাঁ, তখন যেটা হয় বাচ্চারা আসলে সেলফ রেগুলেশনটা করতে পারে না, তখন ওদের মধ্যে একটা দুঃখ কষ্ট থেকে যায়। এই কষ্টটা আসলে পরে দেখা যাবে, যেটা ডক্টর বারি বলল, যে পরে এটা আমরা অ্যাডোলেসেন্স, এবং শুধু অ্যাডোলেসেন্স না, অনেক আগ থেকেই বোঝা যায়। যেমন একটা বাচ্চা যে নিজেকে নিজে ঘুম পাড়াবে, সে সেলফ সুথ করে, it seems like a skill, but actually if it's on a repetitive trauma, যে সে বারবার দেখতেছে যে অন্ধকারে তাকে কেউ আসতেছে না, সে হয়তো ভয় পাচ্ছে, উই ডোন্ট নো। তো আসলে এই আবেগগুলো যখন ওরা প্রসেস করতে না পারে তখন ওদের মধ্যে একটা কষ্ট সৃষ্টি হয়, and this then reflects in many of other behaviors. So in family life আসলে আমাদের যেটা করা উচিত, আমি জানি আমাদের সব পরিবারে মা বাবা দুইজনে, there's a lot of single families, there's a lot of families in conflict, যেখানে মা বাবা হয়তো একসাথে থাকতে পারতেছে না, অনেক ঝগড়াঝাটি হচ্ছে। but even in those situations আমাদের আসলে যারা মুরব্বী একটা বাচ্চার আশেপাশে যারা আছে in the family, we need to make sure that feelings are not only expressed, but they are acknowledged, they are validated, এবং বাচ্চাকে বোঝানো উচিত যে এই বাসায় এই আমাদের এই ঘরে all feelings are allowed, কিন্তু কিছু ফিলিং আছে যেগুলো আমরা we need to better manage, যেমন anger, frustration, overexcitement. There's you know, we have a spectrum. So with that, it takes a lot of effort, it feels like, but actually ছোটবেলা থেকে করলে it becomes the norm in a family. এবং there's ways of doing that, যেমন একসাথে খাওয়া, একসাথে নামাজ পড়া, যতটুকু সম্ভব বাচ্চাদেরকে সাথে রেখে কাজ করা আর কি বাসায়, এবং ওদেরকে কিছু কিছু কাজ দেওয়া বাসায়, তখন এই যে responsibility teaches how to manage feelings as well.
Yes, yeah.
I think that was the original question. That you know.
That's absolutely fine. My daughter used to say something. You know, she would say, "I feel happiness in my heart." So you know, it just shows where does she feel that she's not happy, because we often say we are happy, but she said, "I feel happiness in my heart," and I just thought this is really, the words are really rich. But often, you know, in our families mainly, একটা বাচ্চা যদি বলে যে আমি angry, I am angry, we're like, oh no, you shouldn't be angry, you know, like astaghfirullah, you know, anger comes from shaitan. But we are not actually validating their emotions, that yes, you are angry, why you are angry, you know, let's explore that. But we are just saying you shouldn't be angry because that's come from shaitan, you know, we kind of like shutting them down, so they're not able to explore these emotions. I'm going to go to Bari Bhai. Bari Bhai, apni eta সম্পর্কে একটু যদি বলেন যে, you know, you talked about the emotions communication. এই যে বাচ্চাদেরকে আমরা যে বন্ধ করে দিই, না তুমি মানে তারা একটা ইমোশনটা এক্সপ্লোর করতে যাচ্ছে বা আমাদেরকে বলতে চাচ্ছে, আর আমরা তাদেরকে থামিয়ে দিচ্ছি, because we know better than them that they shouldn't be talking about these kind of emotions. They feel frustrated, they feel overexcited, or they feel angry. These are like no, like Ruby Appa mentioned.
জি, আমাদের কালচারে অনেক কিছু আছে। অনেক সময় মনে করা হয় যে ছেলেরা বড় হলে কেন ক্রাই করবে, যে ক্রাইংটা শুধু মেয়েদের জন্য, ওর বাচ্চাদের জন্য। তো এটা একটা আছে যে, এমনকি রাসূল পাক সাল্লাল্লাহু আলাইহি ওয়াসাল্লাম তার ছেলে ইব্রাহিম যখন মারা যায়, তখন he cried like anything, and সাহাবারা জিজ্ঞেস করছে, what is this? They say it's just expression of my feeling. Loudly cry করা, তারপরে স্ক্রিমিং করাটা নিষেধ আছে আর কি। তার মানে ছেলে, মেয়ে, পুরুষ, মহিলা, তারপরে বাচ্চা, বৃদ্ধা, সবার জন্য, সবার লাইফে ইমোশন ইজ এ পার্ট অফ আওয়ার লাইফ, লাইক আওয়ার ফিজিক্যাল হেলথ, আর মেন্টাল হেলথ, ইমোশনাল হেলথ ইজ ইম্পর্টেন্ট। এন্ড ইমোশনাল হেলথ এই জন্য ইম্পর্টেন্ট যে এটার সাথে সোসাইটি সম্পর্ক জড়িত, আমাদের এই সোশ্যাল রিলেশনশিপ জড়িত। এই জন্য ছোট্ট বাচ্চাদেরকে এটা বাবা মাকে অনেক সময়, বা আমার মনে হয় যে ওয়ান অফ দি রিজনস যে ছেলে মেয়েদের সাথে তারা এরকম বিহেভ করে, বাবা মা হয়তো নিজেরাই জানেন না তাদের ইমোশনের এক্সপ্রেশন কিভাবে করতে হয়, অনেক সময় হয়তো নাও জানতে পারেন। এই জন্য মানে বেসিক সাইকোলজি বা ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স বাবা মার থাকতে হবে এবং তৈরি করতে হবে। এটা ডিগ্রি নেওয়ার দরকার নাই এখানে। এবং সেটা যদি থাকে তাহলে ছোট্ট ছেলে মেয়েদেরকে অল্প বয়স থেকে সেলফ অ্যাওয়ারনেস তৈরি করাতে পারে যে দিস ইজ পার্ট অফ আওয়ার লাইফ, এবং এটাকে এক্সপ্রেস করতে যে কি করতে হবে সেটা বলা যায়। যেমন রাগ করলে কোনো জিনিস ভাঙা যাবে না, বকাবকি করা যাবে না, কিন্তু রাগটাকে কিভাবে এক্সপ্রেস করতে হবে সেটা শিখাতে হবে। তো দেয়ার আর মেনি থিংস দ্যাট ইজ রিলেটেড উইথ ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স। এটাকে অনেক সময় সোশ্যাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স বলা যেতে পারে আর কি। তো আমি যে মূল কথা বলতে চাচ্ছি যে বাবা মার মৌলিক একটা জ্ঞান থাকা দরকার, এবং সেটা তাদেরকে নিয়ে মানে চর্চা করা দরকার, so that they can impart their understanding and share their understanding with their own children.
No, absolutely. We want to fix our children. We want them to be perfect, and we want them to. We want to know the strategies how I can fix my children. But often we don't look at ourselves and think like, is there something that I need to fix within myself? Noor bhai, apni age boltechilen je like there are components. I mean, again, if we go in the theoretically, there are components which are part of this. In simple term, if you could explain emotional intelligence, those components.
Okay, there's 5 that are kind of been designated of the basic parts of it. But you know, sometimes going into it becomes very technical, and but the gist of it comes down to, say, understanding how I feel, knowing how that, and then at the same time not reacting on that emotion. So basically having that control, and then thereafter being able to continue on what I'm trying to do without that emotion impacting me. And if we look at that as in a nutshell, would be what I will say is kind of the breakdown of emotional intelligence. So that means an example is, I'm frustrated with, you know, we all have it. We become, something happens, we become angry. And I think as adults, we might have just a good example, road rage happens, and all of this is actually a good way of checking your emotional intelligence, that suddenly somebody cuts you in, or somebody comes very close to you, maybe bumps into your car. Again, the natural reaction is going to be anger, frustration, all of those things. So it's the first and foremost is being aware of what the emotions are, how it impacts others, and then not necessarily acting on that, because with anger can then come violence and other things that come with it. So actually holding back, understanding that, and then basically actually then doing something which doesn't, it's not a reaction, more an action. And then at the same time seeing through with what the plan is. And I think with children as parents, an easy example could be if you were to build in that emotional intelligence with the child, and we can use 2 analogies. Just say there's a child who's struggling with their homework. Now, a child who's developed better emotional intelligence will struggle and get so angry, and he'll be frustrated that he wants to kind of tear up his paper. But he knows that this isn't the best approach. That he knows that, look, I'm feeling, and he's understanding his emotions. I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry. So then he continues to persevere, he's still struggling. So then he calls his parents are coming in, and even though they might be pushy saying, how come you've not done your homework yet? He understands they're doing it for a good reason. He struggles, and then the next day he realizes, I can't do it. He might then go to school and then tell his teacher, I didn't understand the homework, help me. So he's actually processed the emotions but not reacted to them. A child who's not gone through that process will straight away get angry, tear up the paper, his parents will come in, and he's going to see them, they're nagging at him, and he'll shout at them, he'll storm off to the room, you know, unhappy. Then you go into next day in school, and then be saying to his friend, you know, this is a stupid homework, and then his teacher will ask him, did you do your homework? And say, no, I didn't. And he didn't tell them that I didn't actually understand the homework. So that's, as an example, you can see how emotional intelligence plays out. And when you develop that and work on that, there are strategies that you can do to help with that, and that's the impact you can have on a child.
I'm just thinking, like, yes, so we know about these things, what to do, but we're not robots, and we try to, most of the time we try to you know, behave civilized way, but sometimes it's just we lose our cool, and that's it. You know, somebody cut in front of, because we were late to work that day, and it happened that, you know, everything is going wrong on that day, so I can't keep my cool. So these kind of things happen as well. So does that mean we are not secured, you know, emotionally, we're not emotionally intelligent enough, or is there odd days can go wrong some days? Is that what you're saying?
What happens with emotional intelligence is something which, even if you don't have any techniques or strategies from a young age to implement, it naturally develops with age. And the term for emotional intelligence at older age is maturity. So when we call out a person is mature, is because they can see beyond certain things, see beyond the emotions and reactions we would have. So it naturally develops. Now, depending on how much you had a head start, it has an impact on our in terms of our adulthood. So at a young age, if we were to able to actually have our, as I mentioned already, emotions validated, listened to, and even named, because sometimes we don't know what these emotions are as a child, and then actually have problem-solving techniques. Then we're at a better start through life to kind of go on and develop that. Otherwise, what that means is we need to really work on that. And the Prophet ﷺ touched upon this anyway with the hadith about anger. That if you do get angry, then what are the techniques you do to calm yourself down? This is all part of regulating your emotions. So this is also emotional intelligence.
Now I want to know more about the problem-solving strategies, because at the end of the day, yes, we know that these are the emotions I exhibit, or, you know, these are the emotions I feel very strongly. But at the end of the day, when I know that I have got this problem, just knowing is not good enough. I need to act on that, or I need to, better myself from that. So I want to know more about those strategies. Rubiaba, we're going to go to break very soon, but before the break, Noor Bhai said that, gradually people do become mature and then they understand more. আমরা যখন emotional intelligence যখন IQ এর কথা বলতেছি, it sounds like this is like God gifted, God given. Emotional intelligence, how much is it actually could be nurtured or could be developed over the time?
I hope it's okay for me to speak in English at this point, because
yes,
I think I find it difficult in Bangla.
Yes.
But I think although parts of it can be developed with maturity, I do feel, and I experience this in my coaching practice and the interactions I have with families, is that actually as adults we see ourselves maturing biologically, physically, but actually emotionally some of it needs to be nurtured, because we find that even as adults there are people we meet in our workplaces, in marriages, in families, where even as adults they're not able to regulate their emotions. And some people are better at managing it outside at work, but in the home they find it very difficult. So there's these very chameleon sort of behaviors, where you adapt, but also there are situations where it's quite shocking how people are not able to manage their emotions, and particularly in marriages and when you have children, these become more and more prominent. And I think a lot of it is actually down to our upbringing, what we experienced when we were younger in our childhood, that we see that becoming more, and often adults don't realize where the roots of it is, and that they don't realize that they are being a particular way, because we are very good at blaming others. We're very good at blaming other things and situations to rationalize our behavior. So I think as adults we also say that to our children sometimes, that if you had behaved better I wouldn't need to shout. If you had done your homework I wouldn't have needed to do what I did. So we do tend to pass on our aggression and the reasons for it onto other people. But actually when we've become angry or sad, or it's because I haven't been able to regulate my emotions. It's not the fault of the child or the husband or the wife or work colleagues that I lashed out. So there is a reason, and I found it interesting when you said that, Nuzhat, when you were saying that we're not angels and we are human, we are full of emotions, and that's right. But what people around us need to understand is, are they tiptoeing around us? Are they walking on eggshells on a constant basis, or is there a sort of a normality to who we are, and they can predict us to a certain level? Or is it that constantly they're worrying what's going to be next? So they're very cautious of how they behave around us. Okay. And when people are very cautious around us, that's a telling sign that actually we're temperamental. We're not in control as we should be of our emotions as much as we'd like to be.
Sure. Okay, thank you, Rubiaba. We're going to come back after the break and we're going to have more discussion on this. আমরা ব্রেকে যাচ্ছি, আমরা কথা বলছিলাম ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স নিয়ে। আমরা বলেছি যে ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স ব্যাপারটা কী এবং এটা কেন দরকার আমাদের অ্যাডাল্ট লাইফে বলি, আর আমাদের ছোটোবেলা থেকেই আমাদের কতটুকু এটা আমরা শিখতে পারি যাতে বড়োবেলায় আমরা কাজে লাগাতে পারি। এবং আমরা ব্রেকের পরে আসবো কিছুটা স্ট্র্যাটেজি নিয়ে কথা বলবার জন্য, যে হাউ উই ক্যান exercise it within our own lives as well as instill it within our children, inshallah, after the break. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. আমরা ব্রেকের পর আবার ফেরত এসেছি উইমেন টুডে অনুষ্ঠানে। আজকে যে বিষয়টি নিয়ে কথা বলছিলাম সেটা হচ্ছে ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স। ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স আমরা খুব সিম্পলভাবে যদি বলি, সেটা বলছিলাম যে আমাদের যে বুদ্ধিমত্তা আছে তার সাথে আবেগের যে একটা মিশিয়ে আমরা যে একটা একজনের সাথে নিজের সাথে বা অন্যের সাথে সমাজের মানুষের সাথে যে আমাদের ইন্টারাকশনটা আছে সেটা কিভাবে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাওয়া যায় সেই সম্পর্কে কথা বলছিলাম। সেটাকেই আমরা বলেছি খুব সিম্পল টার্মে ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স। আমরা বলেছিলাম যে ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স সেটা পারিবারিক ক্ষেত্রে স্পাউস হোক বা বাচ্চাদের কাছে হোক, আত্মীয় স্বজনের বন্ধু মহলে, এমনকি কর্মক্ষেত্রে অনেক সময় এইগুলো দক্ষতা থাকার কারণে আমাদের অনেক ভালো হতে পারে আমাদের নিজেদের প্রাইভেট লাইফ। ইভেন একজন বলছিলেন যে আমরা অনেক সময় জানতে চাই যে আমরা যদি এই রকমের স্কিলস আমাদের থাকে এতে কি আমার অফিস ওয়ার্কে বা আমার ফাইন্যান্সিয়ালি কোনো কিছু ভালো হবে কিনা। ডেফিনেটলি আই মিন দিজ আর দ্য স্কিলস। আমরা শুধু আইকিউ দিয়েই চলবে না, বরং বলা হয়ে থাকে, ভাই আমাদের মেনশন করেছিলেন অ্যাকচুয়ালি আইকিউই আজকাল খুব একটা যে দাম আছে সেরকম না। আগে আমরা বলতাম যে মামার জোরে মনে হয় চাকরিটা থাকবে, চাকরিটা পেয়ে যাব। চাকরি পাওয়া গেলেও, আইকিউ দিয়ে চাকরি পাওয়া গেলেও অনেক সময় দেখা যায় ইকিউ না থাকার কারণে, ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্স না থাকার কারণে চাকরিটা হয়তো থাকছে না, বা হয়তো তার একটা প্রমোশনও পাচ্ছে না, বা সে আরেকটু যে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যেতে পারবে সেটা সে করতে পারছে না, কারণ তার ইমোশনাল ইন্টেলিজেন্সের যে দক্ষতা থাকবার কথা সেগুলো হয়তো তার মধ্যে নেই। তো আমরা কথা বলছিলাম যে কিভাবে এই দক্ষতাগুলো আমাদের মধ্যে থাকলে বা আমরা কিভাবে হয়তো আরও এমন কিছু জিনিস আমরা এক্সারসাইজ করতে পারি যেটা আমাদের নিজেদের মধ্যে আমরা নিয়ে আসলে আমাদের জন্য ভালো হবে। আমাদের সাথে আজকে এই বিষয়টি নিয়ে কথা বলবার জন্য আছেন নূর চৌধুরী ভাই, আমাদের সাথে আছেন রুবি আপা এবং আব্দুল ভারী ভাই। তিনজনই আমাদের সাথে মানে দে আর ভেরি স্পেশালিস্ট ইন প্যারেন্টিং অ্যান্ড দে টক অ্যাবাউট দিস সাবজেক্ট, সো উই আর লার্নিং ফ্রম দ্য স্পেশালিস্ট। নূর ভাই, বিফোর দ্য ব্রেক উই আর টকিং অ্যাবাউট the importance of this, and I wanted to know a little bit about the long-term implication, which means যে এগুলো যদি না থাকে, absence of this or not being able to use this in the younger years, what would be the long-term implications later on in life?
So while there's long term, I'll also talk about short term as well.
Yes, absolutely.
But with long term, what we can see is, as has already been mentioned, that in our daily lives, how we're going about, how we're interacting with family, with society, that has an implication based on emotional intelligence. There's a lot of studies that have shown that in adult years, we have a lot of issues of depression, anxiety, other mental health related issues. And a lot of those have connections back to basically when they were into childhood, and how when they were going through the different emotions, that they weren't, those emotions weren't kind of listened to, expressed, listened to, validated, named, and they weren't soothed. Overall, they weren't soothed at that young age. And because of that, they don't know how to overcome these different problems that they faced in life. So then as the problems get bigger, they have no strategies of dealing with it. So from a young age, when they have the ability to understand and cope with it and strategize how to get through it, it makes it easier when the tasks get bigger. So one thing is there is a lot of link from depression and other mental health related issues to emotional intelligence or lack of it. Another one is there is a high rise in child suicide, in child's mental health breakdown, anxiety, depression. You know, there's numerous stats. Only today I actually posted something on my Instagram, and which actually breaks down some statistics regarding child mental health and the impacts of it. And not this being the only factor, there are other factors, but this is a key factor, which is the inability to basically process the emotions.
Yes.
And a lot of the times what happens is when they don't process their emotions properly, meaning understanding what they are. So what I'm feeling something, meaning having you understand what I'm feeling, so I know that you can relate to me. Having a name for it, I know what this is. This is sadness, anger, hurt, and then having the strategies of how do you deal with it. If you don't do that, then what ends up happening is that child has all of these feelings built up inside, and they don't know how to express it. And additionally, they think it lasts forever. A lot of times we know that when we fall off, we hurt ourselves. It's a temporary period of pain and hurt, but then we got over it. And because of that, is having a direct link to the high number of children who are suffering from mental health related issues, which then goes into depression, suicide, and more.
Yes, yeah. Bari Bhai, you were talking about some child protection issues as well. Do you want to elaborate on that, please?
I think this is a very serious issue. Those who are teachers and in the social service, they are aware of this. Even if your child is abused, say, by you in any way, say physically touching in a way that is children feel hurt or emotionally probably feel threatened, and a child goes to school with some worry and other things, and teacher asks, what are you worried about? My mom said this, my dad said this, I'll be sent to Bangladesh, or if I do this, police will come, all sorts of things that we see in our culture, in our community. This could be a child protection issue, and if it is recorded as a child protection issue, then parents have to বাংলায় মানে কৈফিয়ত দিতে হবে অথবা জরিমানা হতে পারে, অনেক কিছু হতে পারে আর কি। So one is parents should be aware that there are child to which emotional one is one, sexual, neglect, physical, and when parents যদি না জানে, then there are serious problem. I personally know that some even very clever and educated parents were in difficulties in their with their own children, and some of the children were taken out from them.
Yes. Inshallah, thank you so much. Ruby Appa, apnake diye shuru kori, and then I think we want to discuss more about this question that we are talking about children. Obviously, before children, it's us, it's the parents. How do we actually, we're talking about emotional intelligence. How do we actually make ourselves or improve ourselves to become more emotionally intelligent? And then I want to talk about how do we actually instill it within our children. Like I said, it cannot be just we want it for our children and we just like, oh, you got to show me that you are emotionally intelligent, but I don't practice it myself. So first of all, it starts with us, with the parents. So how do we do it for ourselves? আর আমাদের আসলে আমরা অনেক সময় মনে করি যে আমাদের বাচ্চারাই মনে হয় আমাদের সব কিছু, আসলে আমাদের কৈফিয়ত তো আমাদেরকে দিতে হবে, আগে তো আমরা নিজে মানুষ হব, এরপর না বাচ্চা মানুষ করব। So I think how do we actually improve ourselves on this, and then I want to talk about how do we actually improve this within our children. Ruby Appa.
জি, তো আমি যেটা বলতে চাই সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের আসলে নিজেকে নিয়ে শুরু, তাই না? We can manage ourselves. It's very difficult to control somebody else. What we have is some sort of a control on ourselves. So আমার যেটা প্রায় সময় মনে পড়ে সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের ধর্মতে আমাদেরকে অনেক কিছু শেখায়, এবং একটা জিনিস বারবার আমরা পড়ি বা কোরআনে পড়ি, হাদিসে আসে, আমাদের বিভিন্ন সময় আমরা দেখি যে this concept of mercy, যে Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet with mercy. He asked him to be gentle, he asked him to be softly spoken, he asked him to be wise when he talks to other people. So really the lessons we can learn from this is that, and I will go back to what you were saying earlier, is that we are human, we have our own emotions, we also have our own baggage in a way, because we have our own experiences of how we were not soothed, how we were not seen and heard, like Nurbay mentioned. But actually, a lot of that dictates. So I have a lot of parents who say to me, I can't hug my child. I find it really difficult to be gentle with them, because my own experience has been that I've had a harsh upbringing. So others will say, I've had such a soft upbringing that I don't know how to put in discipline, some sort of boundaries with my children. So really what I think is really important for us as parents to do is to be really reflective. Any training you go on, we are asked to be reflective practitioners. We are asked to reflect on our practice. We are asked to think about better strategies moving forward. Similarly, unfortunately, in parenting, we don't have that. We are just expected to do. As soon as we have a child, we're expected to know what to do. But really, within our parenting journey, us looking at ourselves first, we need to get better at being reflective practitioners. We need to, the muhasaba, the self, how I take account of myself. And really, if I can say this for sure, the parents who shout at their children, the parents who are emotionally detached from their children, don't feel good. We don't feel good. We cry ourselves to sleep. We feel guilty. We feel sad. And so it can't be a good practice. So it really goes back to our state of fitra. And we all know as Muslims that we have a state of fitra that is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which yearns to be good. So we need to reconnect, find our fitra again, which requires practically, on a practical level for parents, is to, when you see a situation that is getting out of hand, or you find difficult, you know you're going to find it difficult to deal with, take a break, press the pause button, take some time out, regather yourself, regroup with yourself, maybe talk to a friend, maybe talk to your spouse, maybe talk to an older child, a sister, whoever can help you to understand that situation a bit better without divulging the child's confidentiality, because often our children feel that we talk about their business to everybody. So really, you know, keeping that as a manner as well, but really to help you regulate, we need to look at ourselves and take a step away from the situation. The first thing I would say is, you know, step away from the situation, breathe, and then think about, what is it that I actually want to see in my child? What is the outcome I want to see? How do I want the situation to be? And that will really help you to focus on the outcome rather than the emotions you're feeling and the negativity that you're feeling. Because once you have a positive outcome you're looking at, it is easy to think, well, the way I'm behaving is not going to get me that. What is it that I need to do to get that? And that often really helps to the space between where you are at and the child is. The reflection time is really, really important. And when you go back, you'll find that in the interest of the child, you will change your approach. And I think, you know, obviously there's so many other strategies, doing adhkar, istighfar, doing wudu, as Nurbe also mentioned, doing 2 rakah nafil if you can, if it's appropriate at the time. But really, it all indicates what you do in that breathing space before you go back to a child and try to deal with the complex situation we're often in.
Yes, I think that's it. I mean, these are complex situations, these are complex emotions, and it's okay to have those emotions for ourselves and children to know that it's okay. Mom or dad can get angry, we get angry, but how do we manage this at the end of the day? And you know, I mean, we all suffer from this, but you know, when we are practicing this, that okay, I'm really frustrated or I'm angry about, I'm taking a break. Why? Because I actually value this relationship and I don't want this to break down. So I'm going to take a break. You know, I'm just going to step out and I'm just going to cool myself down. I'll come and talk. And I think even if we verbalize this, children know mom is angry, so she's just, you know, taking a pause. Would you say the same thing, like as part of strategies as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things, it's hard. No one, like I said, we're human, we make mistakes. Even those who, you know, myself, you know, every day we have those mistakes. So even though we try our best, we'll always have those slips. But the more we can model a good behavior of dealing with a strategy, our children then pick up on that. And that's an important part, that the more we can do it, then you will see our children, inshallah, following that. As I said, the children see you more than they hear you, and that's an important thing. In terms of regulating ourselves, there's many different ways of doing it. I would say one of the things is, as was touched upon, was like muhasaba, which is kind of what I would say is journaling, is to write down. You know, writing down, and that's a really important part, that every day if we can journal, we're putting our thoughts out, how do we feel, how do we interact, it allows us to kind of reflect, okay, how did I deal with that situation? Because when you leave a situation, you're calmed down, your emotions are calm, then you actually realize, okay, I didn't do that right. And we know, we're just talking before about how we can get into disputes with family even, and then we realize, why did I say that? Once you've said it, once it's come out of your mouth, you can't really take it back. And this is all part of how we can regulate it. The thing with children, one advice I will give, and this is something that I've done with my son. My son has got one of my children has got he's autistic, and similarly with the school as well. I've done these sessions where it's called something called emotional care tags. And what this does, and for adults, I think we also need it as well. What it is almost like creating a list of cards where you have 3 headings. One is when something happens, so how I feel and what should I do. And then the 3 things. And then what you do is you brainstorm situations. So when I, for example, lose, I'll use this example for my son. When he loses, he feels frustrated, angry. And then what you're saying is, okay, then what should I do? What do I need? So in that situation, maybe I might need this, I might need some space. I might need to breathe. Or it could be when I've failed at something, I'm upset, I'm hurt, I'm crying. That's what I feel. I feel sad. What should I do? I need a hug. And the more we can have these strategies in place, then what happens, it helps to remind us and also our children, okay, you know, okay, when you're feeling this, this is what we should do. Because in the heat at the moment, we forget. And the more we can have these kind of strategies in place, so emotional care tags is a very good way of doing it.
We all need this, autism or not, I think. Bari Bhai, same question to you. How do we actually maintain and manage ourselves and our children? Bari Bhai, are you in mute?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, Bari Bhai, I was just saying that, you know...
Can you repeat?
Okay, yes. I just wanted to hear your opinion on how we can actually maintain ourselves and how we can regulate this attribute within our children of, you know, emotional intelligence. Some practical tips.
Yeah, it's easy said than done, because parents ideally should be a role model to their children in all aspects. How they express their feeling, how they talk, how they eat, how they dress. If parents are good role models, then the children don't have to look for any role model beyond the family. And but this is not easy, because we all are frail in our activities, in our life. So rather than pretending that we are perfect, because many parents may feel that, try to show that they are better than their children in terms of behavior, we shouldn't pretend. We should be going down to the human level. That, look, my son, my daughter, this. I also sometimes feel like that. So I learn from my own mistake, and this is what I have learned. And if we go to the human level, then they will be able to connect with us easily. And then we try, as parents, we constantly try to be a better role model for children in all aspects, including in expressing our emotion and how we talk with the children. I think this role modeling is probably the most important. And as I said, it's not that easy. So parents have to be more conscious than the children in any aspect of parenting and any aspect of life.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Rubiaba, I want to, I mean, we are towards the end of the show, so I just wanted to hear the closing statement or a take-home message from you, and then Bari Bhai, and then from Nur Bhai, inshallah.
Inshallah. So I think what I would like parents to take away from the program today possibly is really to look after their own emotional well-being first. And like Bari Bhai said, role modeling is so key, because if we don't want to see a behavior in our children, then we need to make sure that we are practicing it as much as possible in our own behavior towards the children. The other thing I just wanted to mention as well, that if you know, when we think about our children, it's really also the clear instructions. I know in many families we have a conflict, but that conversation is never had again. So it's conflicts are fine, because what we learn from them is to problem solve. So really, it's how we repair the conflict. So if we have had a conflict in the family where we've had harsh words, or we have behaved in a way that wasn't appropriate, it's really important to go back to our children and have that conversation where we can re-understand, readdress that situation, and really learn to talk together and find out how we can better manage it next time something like that happens. Again, to label your feelings, and then what is it that we need to overcome that situation and feeling, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Bari Bhai, please. Bari Bhai, take home message from you, please.
Okay, and I think we are going through a very difficult time in this world. The morality and the politics and Islamophobia and all sorts of things are around us, surrounding us. So the word I would mention is we have to be more empathetic with our own children. Yes. Even when we were born and we were raised in this period, how we have felt. So if we become empathetic, then probably we can become a bit more loving, caring, and a bit more patient with them when they express any wrong things in front of us. So empathy is important, knowing what is happening around us, why our children behave the way they behave, knowing that is also important. So empathy and more knowledge are fundamentally important.
Okay, inshallah. I think we will need the empathy and those kind of skills more after the COVID, when actually things get normal. We would need that more. Noor Bhai.
A take-home message which I would say is, if we look at the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this topic we're discussing in detail and breaking down the strategies, but this was taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we take one example, there's of a hadith, that there was a young child, a Sahabi, his name was Abu Umair. And wherever he went, he had his little sparrow with him called An-Nughair. And what happened is, one day there was a bit of a commotion, or some people outside. The Prophet ﷺ came, he spoke to Abu Umair's older brother. He said, what's happening? And he said, Nughair has passed away. So then he goes, the Prophet ﷺ goes over to this young boy. And he doesn't say to him, it's okay, it's fine, don't worry, don't cry. What does he say to him? He says, what happened to Nughair? So he asked him. So he has the ability to express his emotions. And the Prophet ﷺ listened. He was listening, he was validating his emotions. He didn't turn around and say, don't worry, it's gone to Jannah, for example, or don't worry, I can get you another one. A child doesn't want to hear those things. The emotions he's feeling now, the Prophet ﷺ listened and he was validating it. And he was soothing this child. And that's the example we can take from the Prophet ﷺ. A whole of emotional intelligence can be taken within this hadith.
Yes. I just want to give a conclusion, but I don't think after this hadith, I don't want to talk too much. জাস্ট ছোটো করে যদি বলি যে ইমোশন বা আবেগ যেন আমাদেরকে পুরোপুরি যেন নিয়ন্ত্রণ না করে। আবেগ দরকার অবশ্যই, আমাদের জীবনে তো আবেগ আছেই, আবেগ ইজ পার্ট অফ লাইফ। সো আবেগ ইমোশন সেটা থাকবে, কিন্তু সেই সাথে আমাদের যে বুদ্ধিমত্তা আছে, আমাদের যুক্তিবাদী মন যেটা আছে, সব কিছুর সমন্বয়ে যেন আমরা নিজের সম্পর্কে আমার ধারণা রাখতে পারি কোনটা আমাকে বেশি হয়তো ইমোশনাল করে ফেলে, সেটা পজিটিভ হোক বা নেগেটিভ হোক, সেটা সম্পর্কে আমার নিজেকে আমার জানতে হবে। সেই সাথে আমরা যাদের সাথে ইন্টারাক্ট করি তাদেরকে জানতে হবে যে তাদেরকে কোনটা হয়তো ট্রিগার করে, এবং আমরা যখন আমাদেরকে জানবো, আমাদের আশেপাশের মানুষকে জানবো, সেই হিসেবে আমরা আমাদের রিলেশনশিপগুলোকে আমরা কিন্তু ন্যাভিগেট করতে পারবো। এটা প্রথমত দরকার আমাদের নিজেদের জন্য, আর আমরা যখন এগুলো প্র্যাকটিস করবো উইদিন আওয়ার সেলস, আসলে অটোমেটিকলি বাচ্চারা এটা দেখে দেখে শিখবে যে এরকমই তো আমরা দেখে এসেছি। A lot of things you can't actually teach children. You know, the more I was reading, you can't just teach them like, this is what are you going to do. You can tell them the strategies, but at the end of the day, it is a lived experience, and it's the, I mean, I don't know much about this, but this is when I was reading, I was just thinking like, this has to come from within yourself, and this is the upbringing, and it's a process, it's a journey. You can't just like, oh, do this when you feel this. Doesn't quite often like work like that. Anyway, আজকে এখানেই শেষ করছি। আমাদের এই কথাগুলো হয়তো চলবে, কারণ হচ্ছে কি এই যে কম্পোনেন্টের কথা যেগুলো বললাম, সেলফ অ্যাওয়ারনেস, মোটিভেশন, you know, this kind of empathy, I think in itself এক একটা পোর্শন যেগুলো, এগুলো নিয়ে আমরা কথা বলবো in future shows ইনশাআল্লাহ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।